And so there appeared before me now a parade of discarded selves, as if in some sort of celestially generated magic lantern display, not on some wall, but as if before me, or rather more accurately, from within me. Is it not wise? Is it not brave? And even noble to honestly reflect upon how ridiculous this all is? That one reads a book and emerges a changed person? That one bumps one's head, not at all badly, and transforms into what seems another person? Well then, at the point of death, we shall all indeed become another, whether it be a collection of distant, lonely molecules, maggot food, incorporeal beings of this or that sort, fretting about what's next for them, whatever or whomever they might end up becoming. All these things are equally ridiculous, no? A pointless charade in a hall of cold, cruel mirrors, and, hence, not to be taken remotely seriously, a parade of momentary delusions, then, each replaced by another equally foolish and not a bit less awful or violent. That foolish boy caged in a basement in which he assumed he would soon die by his or others' hands. He had no notion of what death was, and did not fear it. He dreaded only the getting there, the brutal death march, overseen by mangled mothers bearing whips and scowls and shouting at, was it indeed at him? For he had done nothing wrong, nothing at all. Why at him? I hold him close, now that I am walking by this river, and with each step I take I slough off selves. A very simple matter, when I compare it to the sloughing off of selves, which fall behind me and are immediately dragged beneath the water's surface. I try to catch them as they fall. I catch the boy who I once was, if indeed I really was that boy. But no, I see him veiled now, beneath a curtain, upon a stage 5 miles away, beneath the waters of this river. I can't save him, and I don't want to. There had never been anyone who cared to save him. Let him drown. I've other matters to attend to. I'm being chased by Nazis and Rwandan Hutus with machetes, from whom I'd fled, and thought myself safe. But they were me then, and they are me now. They are inside me. I can't escape them. They are hacking me to ribbons from within, while casting numberless of my former selves into this river. And can't you hear them, those former selves? They are all screaming. They are begging me to save them. Of course I can't. I've got this new grief. It is immense. It is my life now. That thing I loathe, that thing I've always loathed, that I'd give back, were it allowed, but it is not. So I keep walking by this river, which is choking with the selves that I've sloughed off and that I barely recognize. When I look, which isn't often, other than as pictures in some gallery within me that I hardly ever visit, because when I do I feel empty, and the emptiness coagulates and grows into a grief which is immense and is inside me, and which makes it hard to walk along this river, which is choking with all these selves. The little boy I was it in first grade? My sad encounter with the little blonde girl whom he so loved, who slammed the car door as he stood there with his soul smothered in longing, with his heart grown dry as bones, and cast in vats of bitter acid, of bitter tears, seeping down some tube behind his mouth and nostrils, seeking refuge? I remember. I began to gag and wheeze and lose my balance, and the world began to spin. Why did she do that? She must hate me. It is all over. I must die. I'm in the basement now again. But no, I'm simply walking by this river, suffocated as it is, with the bodies of the selves I have discarded, nay, which have been ripped from me. And yet I never signed a contract stipulating I'd be ripped apart this way. Is that an infant I hear sobbing? In the river? I can't place it, though I hear it clearly, and the gases in my guts gurgling away seem its tender, attentive, somehow magically appropriate accompaniment. I hear a frog who sings a song I might just yesterday have thought was simply croaking, but which now I sadly realize is a desperate plea to she who has just spurned him. He is sobbing on what seem to be the banks of this same river, and yet I cannot quite make it out. Is he out there, by the infant who was sobbing? No, the gases that were gurgling as that boy fell to his knees upon the slamming of that car door by the little porcelain angel whom he'd never see again, whom he had dreamt might come to save him in the basement. Down in the bowels of his unbearable aloneness and despair, they're in the storeroom of my guts now, in an uproar, belching complaints I can't find words for. And all those limbs I see beside me, beneath the waters of this river by which I'm walking, reaching out as if to grab me, I've not sufficient hands to pull them out, nor do I wish to. They are not me, not any longer. The little blonde girl? She was no different from the next one, the one after, and the one. They served their purpose, an evil purpose, which hardly matters, for my heart is throbbing still. It is pounding in my ears, part of a symphony of belches, croaks, and screams, of prayers and drowning selves, who beg to breathe and walk and drink and eat and piss and shit, and maybe fuck, and tell themselves they're loved just for a moment. Then they'll repair back to the river, disappear without objection. That will suffice. They all were so terrified of girls, and so in love they couldn't speak. They thought they'd die, and now they have at least been cast into this river, here to drown, and be no more than stamps on letters open now and then, inside a dream. There's no returning, though they try. They try to speak, I never catch just what they're saying. Like the night in which my wife died, when she came into the room and mumbled something which I didn't understand, then stumbled through the hall and back to bed. It was the one and only night I fell asleep upon the couch, only to find her in the bedroom, on the floor, ice cold and blue, many hours later, in the cruel and pale light of dawn. Was that horror, that nightmare? Was it not happening at this very moment? For this moment, too, is ice cold, blue, and terrifying. I am coming undone before my very eyes, which are bleeding, in G. I am shivering and imploding now, as then. Yes, the world turned upside down and there were screams, which came from me. They came from me, which I did not realize at first, but I hear them now quite precisely as I did then. Indeed, dear God, I hear them now. They live in me. But are they different, the ones in me now, from those that poured out of me then? Are they different, and am I? Well then, it must have been me who screamed those blood-curdling screams, who ran lunatic into the street at dawn. But am I not now again in that street? Is this path by the river not that very lane? Surely that self is in the river, the one who screamed half a century ago? Who should have died? Who wanted so desperately to die? To be with her? But no, he's here. He's still inside me. I still am he. I've never ever shook him. He cannot be cast away like all the others. He's like some nameless beast who lives within me and who feeds upon my entrails, who's turned all that remained for me, the long, black as pitch, solitary path of my life, into a posthumous existence in a grey and cheerless world, an upside-down world which I'd never dreamed existed, in which I live and breathe not deeply anymore, for there's no point in breathing deeply anymore. This world is airless and contains nothing of interest, although there's still the quite occasional, I guess it's hard to think of what, perhaps the sweetly fragrant smell of purple lilacs, perhaps a mother doe and her fawn, perhaps some tune a bit less insipid than most of the others I've coughed up over the years. Although they are so rare, the very good ones, so very rare, so sadly rare, Perhaps a thought, a book, a smile? But no, it's over. It was over on the morning when I found her, and the world in its entirety became that ice-cold, pale blue body, and has been that and only that ever since. Then there is me, this or that momentary self, this shuffled deck of cards which I try to put in order or pretend exhibit some sort of order, but which perforce spill out of my hands, for I am nothing but a zombie whose appendages are frostbitten, who drags his frozen limbs beside this river, which is always to his right. I make a point of making sure that this is so. I'm not sure why. Perhaps because if I'm to be grabbed by some strong arm which is protruding from the river, an arm that's mine, or once was mine, well, in that case, I know my right arm's somewhat stronger. There'd be some chance I could escape the grip of memories, hell-bent on pulling themselves out of the oblivion in which they find themselves. But this is also very silly. It is not real. He's like the moon, that little boy, as am I as well. Like the moon, which has no fire of its own, emits no light, for its light is borrowed from the sun, which is soon to swallow up the earth, and which shall eventually die. The moon's a dead thing, as am I, and as are they, all of those selves in shattered mirrors, stumbling blindly by this river, where the countless me's are pulled beneath its surface by those creatures in the folk tales who appear sometimes as sirens, but who are in fact demonic, and whose business is to drown you. But there is one whom I wish they'd belch up from their depths. Not hard to guess who that might be. So I'd suppose at any rate, if you've been reading, which you haven't. It is my mother, that filthy bitch. Please spit her out upon the banks of this black river, for there are other things which seem to live eternally, to persist forever. There is grief and there is hate. Otherwise, just this shuffled deck of selves who are submerged beneath these waters, beneath the ground, in vaults of memory. But if you'd be so kind as to cough up for a moment that vile hag, so I could slit her throat and spit into her face, then wrench her head off from off its body. Medusa she was not, though she'd ambitions. I'll kick it quite as far as I can manage, past the croaking frogs in search of mates, to the depths of the inferno, to that frozen lake where sinners are encased in sheets of ice and pissed upon by little boys who've now grown strong and who seek vengeance. At least this one, who is walking by the river in this upside-down, disgusting world of madness and of filth, and of all those little blonde girls, upon whose altars I have ripped my very heart out from my chest, and gently offered it as sacrifice, as a prayer, and as a gift, to be taken freely, or in barter, or however they might accept it. But they never did. Not a one did. Although lies of every sort were told, and promises were given of both rescue and protection. And the worst lies? Those of love. That two-bit whore, whose filthy mouth spills vile poison, and whose cunt is overrun with fetid sores and foul pollutions, which they'd taken care to hide. But what of them? They didn't matter then or now. Their throats need not be slit. There need be no reprisals, for the truth is, they're as dead as all the selves that once were me. For the dead are no more dead than are the women who still live, but who are not who they once were, and, hence, need trouble me no more. It's just a slideshow, or a sideshow, nothing more, a parlour game. I'll laugh it off, I'm sure of that, at least eventually. It has finally ceased to rain, the sun is shining. I no longer hear their shrieks, if I heard them in the first place. That's a question I can't answer, and with which I need not bother. I am hungry. That is all those growls and gurgles signified. It's all so silly, so embarrassingly insipid, all this pointless ruminating. It's not worth a second thought. For I have learned, perhaps the only thing I've learnt, is that the horrors of one moment are as nothing in the next, as are its sights and sounds and thoughts and melodies. One's heart can't catch them, nor one's ears or eyes retrieve them. They have bubbled up from deep within us to reveal themselves as what? A belch, at which we chuckle. Let them sing their wretched one last song now they're about to drown.